Good afternoon, Radford University. Dustin Staples coming to you here live at Radio Free Radford Studios right now. We've got a guest here coming for you on, and a lot of other things working our way right now. Of course, right now we're going to be speaking with Chris Hurst, who is delegate of the New River Valley. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And
Thank
of
you
course,
for having me, Dustin.
absolutely. So let's kind of tell the last couple, you're running for re-election and stuff coming up November. What has it been like the last couple of years here representing this area?
It's been a real blessing and an honor to be able to be the representative for a part of the New River Valley over the last couple of years. You know, I'm new to being in elected office. Was a news anchor at Channel 7 before I quit and ran back in 2017. And so a lot of what we've tried to do in the first 2 years is really continue to develop relationships and get a better critical understanding of what the issues are for the New River Valley and then try and advocate for them. So. We knew going into Richmond back in 2018 for our first session, and we had our second session this year, that there was probably going to be a lot of people who thought that I was going to be more of a show horse than a workhorse, and so we were very adamant about wanting to change that potential for a narrative and introduce legislation that either directly impacted this area or was suggested to us by constituents. And that's why we were able to pass half of the bills we introduced in the first 2 years in office. And when nothing gets passed in Congress and only about 20% of bills in Richmond get passed, and to be able to have a 500 batting average, I think is something to hang our hat on, but it really is a testament of just trying to be problem solving, which is what we try and do at this office.
Awesome, awesome. And so of course you've been, it looks like been campaigning. How's that been over the last couple of weeks or so?
It's intense. After Labor Day, that's when you start to see the yard signs go out. That's when you start to see all of the events and forums happening around the city of Radford, around the New River Valley. So it's very busy, but it's also a great time for me to really be able to talk to voters in a more intimate way, right? One-on-one at their door. I'm talking to voters all the time, whether you're running an active race or not. But this, I think, gets people kind of in the mode of wanting to talk about politics and policy, whereas a lot of times when I'm stopped in the grocery store, and I ask them, well, what's one thing you really want me to pursue? They're like, well, just keep it up, But now that we're in election season, the fall of an election year, I think people are starting to get clued in, and we're really starting to identify a lot of the issues that people want us to address.
Awesome, awesome. So of course, about, I guess, approximately how many of promoting events have you been to, like town hall meetings, going out and saying, and then how are those turnouts coming out to be?
And turnout's been great at all the events that we've had, in Radford, Pulaski, Giles, Montgomery. We've done town halls ever since I got elected and continue to do those. We've had some meet and greets and participated in some forums. Recently we were here in Radford at the high school for a forum on early childhood education, which is a major issue for the country and for the state and for me in particular and for this university, right, with an education emphasis for degrees, right? But we want to make sure that early childhood education is really a focus so that children aren't coming into elementary school already behind. But how do we make sure that there are great teachers and early childhood educators who are ready to fill those positions that we hope to be able to create in the future?
Awesome, awesome. So of course, along with that, our next question we're asking you, I could say, what has been the most proud accomplishment over the last couple of years? You say, hey, I like that a lot.
Certainly I take pride in what I do. I think everybody who works hard should, but I've been really proud of trying to represent this region the way that it wants to be represented. It's a district that has a lot of diversity, even if it's not always seen. It is a district that has a lot of differing and varying viewpoints, and I think they all need to be respected. So I haven't been pushed or pulled in any one direction to be overly partisan on any particular issue, but have really tried to just be pragmatic and be solution-oriented, which is really what New River Valley residents, and I think Southwest Virginia at large, is really looking for, which is let's just focus on home. We'll leave the partisan stuff to other people, but we have a region to grow and an entire area of Southwest Virginia to try and revitalize, and so that really is kind of my main focus.
Okay, Okay, awesome. And of course, the students, when you did this back in 2017, excuse me, you said you got a lot of votes from the college and level students. How has that been more of an impact as what you're coming up for this upcoming election than it was the first time you ran?
I think it's more of the same. You know, we are in this state of hyper-political awareness, and so a lot of issues too, climate change, for example, are preeminently going to impact younger voters. So while I think that we would have had stronger turnout from college students overall, regardless of what our efforts would be, we have always had an attitude of, you know, especially at Radford, a lot of students who stay here during fall, winter, spring break, a lot of students who stay here over the summer for various reasons. Sometimes it's difficult for them to afford to move back home, right? So if you're staying here on the campus of Radford University for 9, 10, 11 months out of the year, you really should be invested in who your elected officials are, because we're seeing now with Radford and issues of credits and cost for credits and all of that, right? Students deserve to have a voice and a seat at the table in a way that goes above and beyond what they're already given here on campus, and that I think means having a stake and a claim in who wins these elections.
Okay, and of course, this the next couple of months or so, are you planning on maybe continuing to reach out to the college students, maybe come in and talk to the levels, maybe for those first-time voters are coming into play, and how would you kind of emphasize why is voting important to them and why is that?
Yeah, so what's unique about trying to motivate college students to want to get to vote, again, mostly because I feel like so many issues really do impact you when you're in college, even if you can't really see it up close. So we have a lot of people, who it is their first time ever voting, and so trying to give them basic information about where they can find their polling place and assistance for rides for voting, how to get registered to vote. We still plan on doing that very aggressively until the voter registration deadline comes up in October, and then we're going to try to get out the vote like we did 2 years ago. I think it's a testament to the activism and the awareness of students here at Radford that in 2 years they've added another precinct closer to campus to try and accommodate students who want to go out and participate in the democratic process.
Awesome, awesome. So that's a lot of important advice out there, especially if it's first-time voters, to get out there. Your voice, your vote, we hear that all the time, but it truly does matter to those who say right there. Now, we're going to let's kind of switch up just things a little bit. You were recently here for a panel. Kind of talk about that bill that was recently introduced and how that kind of got passed.
Yeah, so obviously, as a former journalist, I respect eminently the work that journalists do across the world and feel like the institution of journalism is under constant threat now as we have more propaganda jargon like fake news being tossed around, where reporters who are just reporting facts that need to be made public are being attacked by those that they're reporting on, right? So it's really important that not only do we protect journalists that are currently in the profession, but that we still work very, very hard to try and generate a new workforce of journalists and reporters in the future, because we're going to need them, and it's now more than ever. So one of the problems in Virginia is that we don't have any protection for students who are journalists from unnecessary onerous censorship from any of the articles that they report on or stories they deliver. There is wide ability for administrators and principals to go in and censor stuff that would be in a student newspaper or in a literary magazine or in a yearbook even. And I think when it's done punitively or when it's done to just try and protect an image of a school, that's just plain wrong. And journalists cannot be quieted when they're first beginning what hopefully will be a long career into thinking that, well, if I try and speak truth to power, I'm just going to get shut out. And that's not the way it works. That's not the way it ever worked when I was in journalism. Yeah, you get intimidated, but the censorship just cannot be part of the curriculum for a student to have that as an expectation. So we introduced a bill last year that would protect student journalists, their advisors, and student publications from onerous unnecessary censorship by administrators. And this is a bill that has been passed similarly in about 12 other states. It's picking up steam with the Student Press Association, the Society of Professional Journalists, the Virginia Press Association. A lot of journalism advocacy groups are now taking an interest in this, but also a lot of teachers, a lot of students, a lot of parents, and a lot of elected officials. I dropped the bill pretty close to the deadline, thinking that it was going to be something where I would try It was either going to be a no-brainer or it wasn't going to get off the ground, and we got a groundswell of support in the wintertime when we introduced the bill, and eventually had 30 people come to the committee room, you know, when it came time for me to present my bill, and had multiple people testify. It didn't succeed in subcommittee. It died on a 3-3 vote, so it didn't get a majority to pass up to the full committee. But we are really hopeful that it's going to be able to make its way through this time around, now that we've been able to build up some momentum behind it.
Awesome. Okay, and of course, I guess was kind of like, as yourself, as you were going into the process of other things, did you really have like a mentality of like, this is exactly what we're aiming for, or is this more so of like, we use more of a censorship concern? Kind of explain a little bit more about that, if you could.
So there have been 2 major Supreme Court cases. There's Tinker and Hazelwood, and starting in the 60s, we had a Tinker standard, which was, you know, United States versus, or I guess it was Tinker versus whatever the school board was. I can't remember exactly offhand. And it basically said that, no, you can't censor student publications. So this is going back to the 50s where this was happening. You can't do that unless the article or information presented is going to materially disrupt the learning environment, right? You say something that's going to incite a riot. You say something that is so libelous or defamatory that it is going to seriously impair the ability for the school to continue regular operation. There are an inordinate number of articles that you could publish that would not materially disrupt the learning environment at a school, but might not be something that a principal or a superintendent necessarily wants out there. I think that you should always have a right as a journalist to be able to publish that if it's not going to disrupt the learning environment. Back in the 80s, a Hazelwood decision came out that basically retooled what the Tinker standard is and said that, no, actually you can do it pretty much for whatever reason you want as long as there's good cause, which is different than it has to materially disrupt, you know, the learning environment. So what can states do? States can, they must accept, you know, the federal laws, the supreme law of the land as the floor, right? But states can always go above and beyond to try and, you know, prevent discrimination and protect those who might be in the minority or those who might be quieted, right? And journalists fall into that. And so states have gone out trying to restore the Tinker standard, right? Knowing that we probably won't be able to get much federal action to try and protect journalists, student journalists anytime soon. So the states basically are restoring the Tinker standard in state code as opposed to a Supreme Court decision.
Okay, very interesting. Didn't know much about that, but now you have informed a lot of our viewers out there, including myself as well. Any last word of advice you want to say to voters who are going out there to help campaign for your election or go and vote this year?
Well, I think that a lot of things. Number one is this time is critical for everybody to vote. You know, state politics are going to be in flux in Virginia. There's an opportunity for the Democratic Party to take a majority in the House and Senate for the first time in a generation. And so that means we need everybody who's a voting age to be a part of that process to make sure that we have a General Assembly that truly reflects the will of the people. So if you're not registered to vote, I can't ask you more urgently to vote, whether you care about college affordability or about the right for you to love whomever and marry whomever you'd like, about fighting climate change, about addressing gun violence and mass shootings in our schools. These are issues that state government can materially address. And so we need you to vote, we need you to get registered to vote, and then you need to see if you're registered to vote back home or if you're registered to vote here in Radford. I'm not going to tell anybody that they have to re-register just to vote for me. If you want to vote absentee, please do so, but you know that is a process as well. So it's not that hard to look it up. State Board of Election websites, elections.virginia.gov. You go there, you will find everything you need in order to participate in the process. But you gotta vote November 5th.
Awesome, awesome. So Chris Hurst, thank you so much for stopping by.
Sure.
You're very busy. Wish you the best in your upcoming election and everything that comes your way.